Hi all, my name is Dennis Andai. Welcome again to my show. Today I would love us to talk about cancer. Basically look at it right from definition all the way up to palliation, so that we may have that basic information in regards to cancer. So I'll always share these videos related to occupational health, public health, environmental conservation, and all the other related areas, including psychology, including social health, mental health, and the like. So if you like my program, my show, please subscribe to it, and, because I'll be bringing more and more other videos. Thank you and welcome. So, what is cancer? First of all, I just want to talk about the burden of cancer. Cancer has become really a global issue, and it's now the second leading cause of morbidity and mortality in the world. And that tells us that it has a lot of impact on every nation. Some years back, there was this notion and that cancer was basically a disease of the rich, but that is changing now. We are seeing so many cancer cases being distributed almost equally among the poor and the rich within one region. And so it is very, very important that we understand the basics in regard to this cancer. Now, cancer is basically, the development, the abnormal growth of cells in the body. So you may have a place in the body where there is abnormal growth of cells, which leads to development of a lump or mass, tumor, and as a result, after many diagnoses or many rather tests, it is usually confirmed that the cells are cancerous. So first, before we go into the details of cancer, I would just want to tell you how cancer happens. What happens is that your body cells, which is the smallest unit of living system, has, a certain organelle that we call the nucleus. Within the nucleus, you have DNA material, um, and within the DNA material, we have the genes. So it is these genes that are responsible for the growth of cells in a programmed way. And what happens is if there is any alteration in the anatomy of those genes, and then what you end up with is mutation, which is kind of, alteration of the arrangement or the structure of those genes, leading to, abnormal functions that are being served by those genes. So that is what happens in cancer, that mutation will always occur as a result of a chemical or a certain element that causes genes to change, and as a result you end up with abnormal function resulting from genes, and that is usually the overgrowth of cells in a specific part of the body. Cancer can actually affect any part of the body except the hair and the nails. But we can have cancer of the skin, you can have cancer of the lungs, you can have cancer of the brain, you can have cancer of the bone, cancer of generally any other organ of your body, including cancer of the blood. Now, what are the risks to cancer? There have been various risks which have been implicated to cancer. Now, one thing we need to understand very well is there are risks and there are carcinogens. Carcinogens are, directly implicated as causes of cancer. Risks are indirect causes of cancer, which still with exposure to that risk doesn't necessarily mean you will, get cancer. So there is always a small line that distinguishes between risks and actually causal factors. So the risks of cancers are almost the same risk as those related to cardiovascular diseases like high blood pressure, those also related to other diseases like diabetes. And of the first most risk is smoking. So tobacco smoking has been implicated to many diseases, and generally, according to it should be WHO. Tobacco smoking is the leading preventable cause of death globally. So it means tobacco increases the chances of getting any other morbidity or mortality conditions or cases than any other thing that you could implicate to such cases. And generally, it's also important to note that tobacco increases the overall risk of getting all forms of cancers. The second leading, rather, the second risk factor is weight. And we talk about weight, we are talking about overweight, we're talking about obesity, we're talking about issues with your BMI. So if you are obese, then it means you increase the risk of getting cancer. Then the other risk factor is excessive consumption of alcohol. Excessive consumption of alcohol has also been implicated to so many conditions, right from cardiovascular to metabolic diseases, and now we are talking about cancer. And then you have a risk factor related to obesity, which is physical exercise or lack of physical exercise. So ideally, you are advised to do at least to take at least 30 minutes daily doing physical exercise. And then you have environmental pollution being another risk factors. Of course, staying in urban centers by itself is a risk factor because of environmental pollution. Then you have poor nutrition. There are people who just hate, for example, vegetables. There are people who love too much fat. There are people who, love certain foods than others. Unfortunately, most of what is so nice to eat, we love it. It tastes good. It's easier to find. It is what is more dangerous to our health. And so there is, if you have nutritional problems, especially lack of vegetable diet, fruit diet, issues with unhealthy fats, then that also increases your risk of cancer. We also have other risk factors related to certain activities. So like exposure to working in an environment where there is radiation, that is a risk factor. For example, solar radiation by itself is a risk factor to skin cancer. Solar radiation is the light that we get from the sun, so that is already a risk factor uh, to, to cancer. X-ray radiation is a risk factor. It's also a cause, and gamma radiation is also a risk factor. So those also becomes risk factor. Now, causal factors are those that we call carcinogens. There are various chemicals which are carcinogenic, various chemicals which have directly been implicated to cancer. And one of them is benzene. Benzene is the sweet smelling odor that emanates from petrochemicals like diesel, petrol, and all that. Even paint, that sweet smell from paint, that is benzene, which has been implicated to um, um, what we call blood cancer. Many people call it blood cancer, but that is leukemia. We have other chemicals that come from, like metal alloys, like chromium, manganese, nickel. All those are also have been implicated as causal factors. You have lead, you have mercury, those heavy metals, which have also been implicated to cancer. You have radiation, which I've mentioned also as a risk factor, but is also a causal factor. So especially what we call ionizing radiation, because it's able to ionize the cells. It's able to remove free electrons from cells, and that is gamma radiation, X-ray radiation, ultraviolet radiation. And now there is a lot of research being done about microwave radiation, electromagnetic radiation, all those radiations. So that also becomes risk factors to development of cancer. Not forgetting about solar radiation, which is a risk factor, but can also be a causal factor. Then you have also other causal factors in relation to, other so many other toxins or chemicals that can go into your body. Unfortunately, the current world is a toxic environment. Everything we are using literally is like a chemical, literally. So you have dust, which has silica, or crystalline silica, which is a chemical, and that is a cause of lung cancer. You have asbestos, which are fibers. That is a real well-known cause of cancer, especially in the occupational setup. You have, general, even VOCs, volatile organic solvents, methylated spirit. You have all those VOCs. They're also causes of cancer. So I'll progress from there in the next video, so that we look at what the types of cancers, and then we look at prevention, and we look at treatment, and progress like that. Thank you.